So I just thought I would add on something as well about when we ask the questions in the meditation, what is it that you want more than anything else in the world for yourself? And again, I'm pointing you inwards. Peace, joy, love, connection, belonging, might be awakening, enlightenment, whatever word speaks to you that is the most important thing. You no doubt have secondary things that you want in the external world. But whatever you want in the external world is because you think it's going to bring you an internal state. So when I ask the question, I'm saying let's cut to the chase. Let's cut out the middleman here and let's focus on what's most important. You can still pursue your secondary goals, but not with the mind that they're going to bring you this feeling, because they can bring it to you for temporarily. That's it. A lot of chasing for a temporary feeling that's not really coming from the object, from getting the object, from getting the praise, from getting the promotion, the success. The good feeling is the absence of the chasing. So what I'm suggesting is let's focus on what it is that's most important, and to be very clear about that, because if we're not clear about that answer, it's so easy to get distracted in the world we live in. It's so easy we say 1 minute, I want peace, and then the next moment we're pushing back on something because I'm not feeling peace, right? And it's because I'm feeling a negative pull today. I'm feeling something. And we do feel, right? Instead of going, I want peace. Maybe I should just surrender to this feeling right now. Allow it to be. It's going to work its way through. And I can find the peace. It's still here, right? So in the second question, when I ask you, what is it that you could be doing more of or less of that would move you closer to it, to what it is you most want? I am just asking you to be honest with yourself about how you're spending your time. And I say, most of the times I'll say, and I think I said it today, doesn't matter if you don't want to do more of it or you don't want to do less of it. Don't worry about that. But being honest with yourself about it, and even if it's the same answer every day, maybe it's get off of social media, right? Maybe it's stop drinking, stop doing drugs. Maybe it's, meditate more, have more quiet, less Netflix, something along those lines. Even if you're not yet willing to give it up, every time you say that, you are planting a seed. And then you say it enough times and you find yourself reaching for that thing that you know is taking you further away from what you most want. Because none of those things bring you closer to peace. And what we all want is the word that we use to describe it most commonly is peace. But again, I offer the other point. It's belonging, love, connection. Again, these states that we associate with all of that: awakening, enlightenment, self-realization, to know God, to know the mind of God, right? I mean, we all use different words, different ways to point to the same thing that we want. Is to come back to our true nature. That's what we're pointing to, right? And yet so much of our day is spent in activities that take us further away. Every time if you go on social media, it's taking you further away from what you most want. You can give yourself all the reasons in the world of why you're on there, but it's taking you further away. I mean, I say to people, and I have to be honest, I have a Facebook social media account. I post videos on there. I hope I can say that. But that's it. I mean, I rarely, or if I have a dog that needs I have a rescue, maybe I'm looking for someone. But I go on Facebook and get off of it as if I'm going to pick up the plague. I don't want to go on there. It's just, it's a minefield. And it's the same with the news. And it's the same with YouTube and Netflix and alcohol and drugs. I mean, all of these things take us further away from what it is we most want. And so this doesn't mean in the beginning you give it all up. You go, I'm giving it all up today. All right? I wouldn't say that because I think that's extreme and I don't think it lasts. But to know where if you're spending a couple hours a week on social media, cut it down to 5 minutes a day or something. If alcohol or drugs is a problem, right? That every night, if we're drinking or doing drugs, you're taking yourself further away from it. So just recognizing that to perhaps limit it. News, just slowing down on the news initially, or checking the news sources that you're getting the news from. Is it agitating you? Most news is meant to agitate us because then it keeps our eyeballs on it. And that's the objective of any form of media, is to keep our eyeballs there. So the more agitated we get, the more enraged we get, the longer our eyeballs stay there, and the further we get from the thing we most want. We always say, I don't have enough time. Right? A lot of us have more time than we realize. Setting boundaries around, we can't be, if you're always socializing, always talking, always out, always about, it's very hard to come in and have that sense of awareness, to know when you're feeling agitated or feeling that negative pull, to have enough wherewithal, awareness, and mindfulness to be able to go, I see what's happening. I need to let go. If we're rushing from one thing to the next, it's very hard to be mindful. Very hard. And we tend to fill up our schedules with rushing from one thing to the next, taking us further away from what it is we most want. And yeah, sure, there's days where we are a little busier than others. Of course, we all have days like this. But to balance those out with the times when we do have a little bit more, when we could have more space in our calendar, but we fill it up simply because someone said, well, are you free? Not even thinking like, well, yeah, there's space there, but I need some time for myself. I need more time for practice. I need more time just to be in silence. If it really is the most important thing, and it is peace, joy, love, connection. This is what we want. We have to be careful with our time, where we're spending our time. We have to be honest with ourselves. And even for those of you that have maybe given up a lot of those things, the external, worldly pursuits, then it's you go to the next, okay, what else could I be doing less of? Oh, just less looking for praise, less comparing, less judging, right? Then we were even just bringing it into another layer of like, oh, okay, now let me just even bring it to another layer of where does the mind, where does the habit keep going? Where does it keep going? Because it's always taking me further away. So again, you're putting a spotlight on the things, the habits, thought habits of how we spend our days, how we spend our time. You're putting more of a spotlight on it because something has to change. You can't get up and do the same thing day after day and expect that anything is going to change. It won't change. And of course, all of you are on a Dharma talk right now. You meditated. Probably most of you probably have very regular meditation practices. So yeah, if this is where you're spending your time on a Tuesday afternoon or a Tuesday evening, maybe a Wednesday morning if you're down under, right? It's like you this is where you want to put your time. So great, fantastic. So just keep looking. Where are more ways that you can find time to dedicate towards what it is you most want. One of the benefits of a monastic life is that very much your life is dedicated to your spiritual practice. And although, as I say that, Because for those of you that know that I moved to a monastery, a Theravada Buddhist monastery in 2013 to ordain, I was so sure that I wrapped up my whole life, left everything behind, shaved my head. I was like, oh, I'm doing it. and then I left because, and we do have to be very careful of this, and I did find this out later. It was a relatively new monastery. There was so much work to be done. And I'm not afraid of hard work. But I mean, I had no time to meditate. I was exhausted by the end of the day. We were spending so much time working. And because I was the monastic aspirant there, I was the one that could drive. The other monastics couldn't drive, so I would be the one going and getting errands all day. And I thought, what am I doing? I had more time before to practice. I'm barely getting an hour or two in a day. And it was interesting. So I left. I was like, well, this isn't helping my practice at all. But generally speaking, in most monastic settings, there's a lot of time for our practice. And yet, when we look in our layperson lives, we can carve out a fair amount of time for practice. We can carve out a fair amount of time if we're being honest with ourselves. And that is the key. We have to be honest with ourselves about where we're spending our time. And even so, again, as I said, don't worry about it if it's not something you're willing to give up yet. Don't worry about it. Or if it's not something you're willing to do more of yet. Don't worry about that. Just keep saying it. And I know because in my own experience, I would just keep saying it. I would keep saying it and keep saying it. And then eventually it was like, okay, now that habit's gone. Okay. What other habit needs to go? And it's a continuous, because if we do this all in one go, if we do it too quickly, we will revolt. And we don't have the monastic setting, the support in order to help us through that. We do have our Sangha, which is great, which is what this is for. And twice a week, we're on Insight Timer. And of course, there's a Sangha every hour on Insight Timer. So you do have the support of a Sangha, and so reach out to any teacher to help you. But to do this wisely, the path that's being taught here, very much a Buddhist path, is the middle path, right? To not go extremes, to not go to extremes of one side to the other, right? And that's what the Buddhist path was about. He did that. He went from one extreme to the other, and then went down the middle way. So we can be taking that to heart in our practice as lay practitioners, but being honest with ourselves about how can I slowly over time keep cutting out some of the things that aren't bringing me closer to what I want, closer to know my true nature. Because there's just so much, we can be so easily distracted in the world, so easily distracted by it. Even in monasteries now, because they've all got the internet. In fact, they shouldn't, because you can see it's happening, a lot of distraction happening. Let's use the internet wisely for meetings like this, right? Coming onto Insight Timer, but being really careful about how we use technology, about where we're wasting our time. We say we don't have enough time. If you're a single mom with 3 jobs, you may not have enough time, right? There are some situations, of course. But if you're here on a Dharma talk today, you have time. You're doing this. Great. Fantastic. Seriously, do you know how few people in the world spend their time doing this, their free time? Very, very few. We've got, I'm trying to see how many people on here, 64 people on here right now. 8 billion people on the planet. We'll assume there's a bunch of other Insight Timer classes going on right now, but it is a very, very small percentage. And also all the Dharma centers out there. Right? So that you're on here right now. This is where you want to spend your time. So, okay, great. What else can you be doing? Just to keep identifying it first. Just ask the question. What is it? Or answer the question. Ask the question, answer the question. And you'll find yourself, you're going to reach for it and you think, oh, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just set the phone down. Maybe I'll go for a walk instead. Look up at the sky, look at nature, right? Look at the colors, the birds, the dogs, right? The sounds, the butterflies, the bees. Let me just look at all this. So planting every time you answer the question, it doesn't matter if it's not something you're willing to give up or to do more of yet. Don't worry about that, but keep identifying it, being really honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. We have to be honest with ourselves. We all do stuff that takes us away. We all do stuff. We all do stuff. Trust me, there was a lot of doing stuff here for a long time, a lot. And slowly it was, because at the same time as we're changing the habits and kind of on the external, changing our habits on some things, we're finding more of that peace inside. And you really do, you notice that shift. It's like, maybe you notice that little sense, there's a little bit of negativity one day and you feel that pull, because if I could just get to the internet, to social media, or to some news item, I'll feel complete. And you feel the pull and you go, I don't think that's what it is. I keep saying to myself to stop going there. That's where I go every time I get stressed, every time I get tired. But it actually never completes me. So maybe instead of following through with that habit, right, I'll just be with it. I'll be with the discomfort for a few moments. Feel it, accept it, surrender to it. And then notice, the peace is here. The peace is here. Or even when we're very present, we're feeling very peaceful, but there's still a little something in the back of our mind, like it's time. It's 2:00. You haven't checked the news yet, right? And you can feel that pull, and it's like, I don't want to go there. What could the news possibly tell me? And if I needed to know something, someone would tell me, right? So just being really honest with ourselves. And don't worry if you don't want to do it yet. I promise you're planting a seed every time you say it. So these questions we ask in almost every meditation. There's a few meditations where I don't ask the question. But as much as you can, ask this question, these two questions. What do you want? Be crystal clear. Be crystal clear. The answer will change from day to day, from year to year. It will become more refined. It will become more, the pointer will become, it will become more, well, it shifts. It just shifts because it does become more refined. It does become clearer what it is. Like we use these broader sense words, peace or joy or love, connection, and then sometimes it just starts to come in and we go, oh no, actually that's it. Oh yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, that's it. And it keeps kind of leading us along. The answer is to point you in the right direction. And then the second question is to say, okay, what can you do? Plant the seed. Just plant the seed. That's all you need to worry about. That's all you need to do is just plant the seed. The rest will take care of itself.